earlier today.
Where
About
was
2
that at?
o'clock. Over at the Garage Burger.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how late are you open? Oh, okay. I was thinking you closed it at the other afternoon. I came by about.
No, he's a real
4:30.
hamburger store now.
I
where
know.
they're open
And I
7
go,
days
oh,
a week.
wow, it's still open. I stand a chance. Getting by there.
That's why I've been there 3 times since he's opened.
It's not good for you, buddy.
Thank you.
So what?
Oh, that's mine, not hers.
You ready now?
Now we are.
All right, since I already banged the gavel, we call to order this regular meeting of the Navasota Planning and Zoning Commission for April 24th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We're going to dispense with items 2 and 3 and go right into item 4. Consideration and possible action on a preliminary site plan submitted by Masterbuilt Ministries, Inc. for the purpose of developing a parking lot expansion, serving a permitted commercial daycare use and non-conforming place of worship use in Article 11B1 General Business District. The property affected is located at 304 Fraser Street, Navasota, Grimes County, Texas, 77868, legally described as S4800 H&TC Block 59. And I'm not in front of them. Lupe, what you got?
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, as you described, Masterbuilt Ministries is proposing some parking facilities upgrades at their current daycare and place of worship location. The proposed design upgrades their parking surface from gravel to paved concrete, which is a welcomed addition. I know they're getting busier and busier, and so this will help them conduct business in a more efficient manner. Part of this project, big picture items, is it does include a realignment that the developer has agreed to construct a realignment of Milliken Street. It's a really narrow roadway, and so I know it's kind of hard to see on your 8.5 by 11s, but Milliken Street is proposed to be slightly widened at its most narrow point. There's also, this is an existing building, an existing business, and they're making an improvement to get it closer and closer to the current requirements as possible. And so a lot of conversation happened about walkability, connectability with surrounding sidewalks. I think the only sidewalks nearby are on Chase Street. And so there is a connection to that. And there's a lot of internal connection as well on all the proposed parking. As outlined in your packet, some of the parking spaces and improvements are outside of private property. And so if this proposed site plan is approved, there will be a separate license agreement that the property owner will enter into with the city. And basically, it's just a disclaimer form that says if the city ever has to go in and do any repairs or upgrades to any utility lines that may affect the proposed paving, those have to be repaired at the expense of the property owner. And we've discussed that with a property owner, and they're agreeing with that. And really just trying to utilize as much parking as possible and provide as much parking as possible. They did provide well over what their building requires. Same thing with landscaping. They did a little more than what's needed. And so overall, it's just a major improvement to the area. And I know Cole Christian with NBC and Paul Malik is here with NBC if y'all have any engineering questions.
A question about the utilities. So that's if the city goes in. What if a third party communications goes in, and who's responsible for the repair?
Same thing. It being in the right of way, it is you're basically saying, allow me to build in the public right of way, and in return, I will fix whatever is needed at any time.
Okay,
So
no matter who
it is. Yes, sir.
And what were the outstanding review comments?
It was mainly related to drainage. The second meeting packet that we sent out on, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday, the only thing that changed was the drainage report, not the original construction plan. There were just some general questions about the main outflow of the detention pond and at what level and at what storm that overtops the site and leaves the site. They had a long conversation with our third-party engineer, and really the final consensus was, in a 50-year event or a 100-year event, most, if not all, of the parking areas will be underwater because this is in the 100-year floodplain. And so at that point, it was almost a moot point about where outflow is going and where it should stay if the whole site is underwater. And I think Cole can go into the specifics about that. That was my layman understanding.
We may can go out and look right now.
Yeah, go to the
Correct,
microphone,
yes.
Cole. Sorry about that.
No, that's correct. And the only thing I would say that's slightly different is for the 50-year event, it should remain underground because the floodplain is for a 100-year event. So you shouldn't see any water like above the surface. I mean, each one of those inlets will pond a little bit, right, as they're taking in water and building up head to push water into that inlet. But other than that, like, that's about it that you might see for the 50-year event. But the 100-year event, he was exactly right. Like, that edge of probably not like the northern part of the parking lot, because that's the high side of the property, right? But the lower side and probably some of these along Fraser Street will have just water in them. And all those pipes will be full because of the floodplain. I mean, that's just where the water level sits right now. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Cole, what would be the approximate cost of this project?
Oh, you have an idea?
Oh, you don't have
I don't
any
know.
idea?
I think I was guessing around 700,000, but that was just, I didn't put numbers to it.
Mhm.
And so it's going to be, I mean, it's quite a bit of concrete, so it's
Yeah.
going to be expensive.
So Cole, you've got things divvied into 5 subzones. And in 3, on the Milliken side of the street, everything's just draining without a flow line in the image. I'm looking at page 28. I don't know what sheet it is.
Drainage report.
Of the drainage
He's
report,
looking at
yeah.
the proposed, I think it's Exhibit E.
Um,
Yeah.
So the elevations show that that's basically flat from the existing structure to the street.
So
And there's no flow line. So this looks like an assumption because there doesn't look like there's any grading going on.
which one are you referring to? I'm sorry. I missed that.
Page 28, yeah, this one. So I'll join you with we'll have
Pointers.
dueling pointers.
There we
but-
go.
But I don't buy fancy lasers. I use my heat.
Do you have a different color, Todd, so we don't get confused? Okay, they're both red.
So you've got a flow line for this field.
Mhm.
You've got a flow line for this field. You've got a flow line for this field. There's no flow line here.
Yeah,
And
so
all
that
you have is
starts right
multiple
here.
arrows.
It starts right here.
So everything's pushing this way. This is 219 feet. The building is 219.4 feet. So you got 0.4 foot of drop between here and here. Are you actually gonna get flow across there?
So I mean, water can't build up. It has to push on. It's
But how do
gonna
we
be-
know that it's all gonna push that way when this is all flat? It doesn't matter because it's just gonna come this way, but it can't get over the berm that you have around the pond, right?
Yes. So we put in we created this lower here, so that this has I don't know if you can see that little V right there. That ties into the existing grade right here, and allows the water to, as it trickles down per existing conditions, because we're not touching this area right in here. And then-
I see this at 219, the building at 219.4. This is 218. So you
Right.
get a foot drop between here and here.
Yes.
So there's a slight swell there.
Yeah, it's a slight swell right in here that goes straight to the back of that pond.
But this whole space is all 219. So yeah, I know water's got to go somewhere, but
Yeah.
but you grade to direct it to your flow line and flow. And here, there's no grading going on to get it to there.
That's correct.
And it doesn't matter because once it starts to fill, it's just going to push itself in some direction
Yeah, it has
from
to.
its high spot. It would have to come back into the building, or it's just going to keep going this way. That's what you're
Yeah.
telling me.
Yeah, and again, that's just gonna grade. We're not touching that area, so he said it currently.
Well, I know,
drains,
that's part of
so-
the question that I have. You're not doing any grading in that area,
Yeah.
yet you're calculating the water to go into a particular direction.
Right, because I believe that's how it goes currently, is it was going around to the north and then back around the site originally. If you go to like exhibit A, I can show you. Yeah, so originally it was kind of going here, and there was a swell kind of here, and it kind of just goes around, and eventually makes it to this inlet. And it was moving pretty slow because from this point to here is it's flat. Like this site's flat.
Yeah, no,
But what
yeah.
we're doing now, by dropping this 2 foot here, that's giving that a whole lot more relief right in this area, right? Because that's kind of where that driveway is going to be now, where we dropped that from the 218. So now it won't have to travel all the way around on this really flat slope. It'll just travel, this little piece will travel straight to that back of that pond right in there.
Currently, the brick portion of the building on the east side is the only part with downspouts. If they build gutters on the rest of the property, is that going to affect your drain system?
No, sir. No, sir. Yeah, this is all assuming that's impervious area, just going straight to those inlets, so.
Yeah, I already talked to Lupe about where the outlet is in the creek, at what elevation that is, and what the chances are of having, back pressure when that elevation is reached with the creek. And he told me that you and the other
Third
engineer,
party. Mhm.
that your 18-inch line will be full by the time that happens, so the back pressure doesn't exist because you're already a full pipe.
Yeah, water operates by gravity, so it's gonna be whatever that creek level's at, it'll be the same level around that creek.
Yeah, I just didn't know what the elevation drop is from the edge of the property to the creek, where that outlet is on the edge of the creek, and how far that is above the average level of the creek, and what the flood stage of the creek was. And, does that creek reach that level on any given rain, or is it a specific, does it take an actual 25-year flood to get to that stage to cause you the ability not to flow?
Yeah, so, I mean, this site is so close to the creek, and it only has, I mean, this site's so tiny. It has a 10-minute, so what this is gonna take, the longest time that any of these drainage basins will take like a water droplet to travel is 10 minutes, because that's the minimum standard. There's actually less than that, but if you do shorter than 10 minutes, you get really high volumes for like when you use the rational method.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, a lot of this water is just it's gonna be gone before probably that creek fills up. So because it's so close. If you understand what I'm saying, like by the time that water hits the inlet and fills up any piece of the pond and then releases at the rate it's going, those creeks like that, right? When they have a big rain, they've got a big watershed that takes maybe an hour to fill up, and finally all that water finally comes slugging down, right? Like we saw that with Harvey or the tax day floods where the Brazos River left its banks. It's because and it was 4 days after the rain, because all that water finally hit the same point, and then it left its banks. Same thing like with this smaller creek, you're not gonna, you have different intervals that these storms hit, and ours should leave before that happens.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if it's the same page number, Luke. I think it's page 61 in the report. It was page 90 when we were sent stuff. Yeah, so page 61, yeah, there. This is, I don't know if this affects everything that you did, but this is actually taking E1 and adding it to S1 through 5, and it should only be S1 through 5. So did that throw off calculations somewhere? Because why is that added
So I
in?
just ran these in the same model. I could have pasted them on different stuff.
But no, but this is all added together to make 3 acres, and we don't have 3 acres on that plot.
Right, so if you were to, like, I did not add that into our pond. Like, if you go, do you mind, I think it's at the very beginning of the report. This is just giving you a summary of each one of those items and basins flows.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it was an additive effect on that particular page.
Yeah, it's just summarizing the total acreage in the model. That's all it's doing.
Okay, so it's not segregating out that basin is actually the same as those added together.
No, so
It's summarizing it by totaling it.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you go to the very first page of this whole appendix piece, this will kind of, the visual will help you guys kind of understand how this model works. It looks like this. This little piece should be at the very beginning of that appendix.
Oh, the appendix or the drainage memo?
It's page 30 on the sheets that you sent out earlier in the week. There.
Yeah, so the way this works, I ran them in the same model because it'll calculate it. So this is that existing basin. I'm just figuring out the flow
Understood.
based on hydrology right here. And then I'm taking all these and routing them through my pond. These 4 route through the pond because they actually go to that structure. This one does not. It goes straight to the outfall.
Yeah.
And so basically you don't want that, obviously that going through there. So when you see that summary page, all that thing is summarizing is these hydrology calculations for each one of these basins and then the pond flow for that basin.
It's confusing that it is making it additive. I mean, I know that's not the real data in that is not the bold face at the bottom. The data is.
It's just telling you, hey,
the text in the side.
you're doing
Yeah.
the whole. I could have broke these out into 2 and it wouldn't have totaled it up, right? But it's just telling you, hey, you ran a total acreage of this amount, which should be double the total site acreage, right?
Okay.
Because the existing should be the same as S1
less,
through 5,
yeah.
right?
Right. And while I have you here, just so that I can learn things, can you discuss a few things about the occurrence tables on page 102 and 103? The pretty multicolored rainbow graphs. So the graphs are more important to me. I understand that this is actually where the data is drawn from, a 10-minute accumulation off of these timelines, right? 25-year flood, 10-minute accumulation at 9 minutes per. So this is where data is collected for but what I wanted to try and understand, because it's here, is what this graph is actually representing. Precipitation intensity in inches per hour. What we know is that when we're picking this flood stage, that we're getting 5.5 inches per hour on a 2-year, 10-minute flood, right? Take your 2-year, 10-minute flood. It's 5.5 inches per hour. And then this is precipitation intensity in per hour, and this is 10 to the 0. So this is an inch per hour, and this is 10 inches per hour. So, because this is log scale, we're in here. But this is average recurrence interval is by years, but this is duration time. So these color downs from 5 to 60 days. So this is a 5-minute rainstorm, a duration, and that's this line. And then that's 5-minute duration. So this is like just once a year we get 7 inches per hour,
If up to 5 minute duration. Basically, all
Up to-
they're just flip-flopped, right? Because you have your average
Yeah.
occurrence interval, which is what these are over here. And then they swap the data and they put the duration instead.
So
of
they're
the
just
duration.
swapping axes to make the
Yeah,
graph
so
look
you can
different?
look at it different and have it different ways. Really, this is just a graph from NOAA. The main
Yeah,
thing
I know. I
is-
just haven't seen one before and yeah.
When you go to print this data, like from NOAA's website, which is, where I got all this, and what y'all's standards say is
Yeah.
to get Atlas 14's current numbers. And basically, all it's taking is the data that's in that big spreadsheet and plotting it on this thing for you. So,
I mean, I always bring this up and, you're the new guy. So,
Oh,
I mean,
no.
like what we just got, right? Because it's all statistical averages with NOAA. And it's accumulated data over time. And what you cannot put into your rational analysis or text dots or US Geologics is what happens when we get 1.5 inches in 25 minutes. Because your data doesn't show how your pond fills in that kind of rate time. And that's the kind of rain we get. So that's always our concern. And we, when things flooded out on Business 6, I mean, it's not just the ponds that you guys build, it's everything downstream. We can't control that the state and the county won't clean their ditches. You know what I mean? But your responsibility ends at the edge of the property line.
Right.
Our responsibility goes to everybody that lives downstream of that property line. And it's really hard to wrap our heads around because the data says the pond will work. And I have no doubt. I'm a data guy. I believe it. But it's the downstream events that bother us, right? And you are pretty lucky you're on top of that creek.
Yeah.
But you're going to bring more projects to us that are going to be more problematic because of the downstream effects. And I wish we could have data modeling that would do different kinds of storms, but you can't collect that data and pool it in order to write these equations because 5-minute storms happen in, a 5-acre area or a half-mile radius, and then they go away, and there's just no way to accumulate the data. But it's a big deal to us, especially when we see these bigger. I mean, that's a small lot by standard, and it's certainly not 40 acres and 250 houses, you know what I mean, which is some of the other stuff we have to deal with. But it's hard. And,
Yeah. I understand. I think something, if I can make you feel a little better about that. I mean, originally, this had one inlet on the site. One tiny little bitty grate that was maybe like this big. I don't know if you guys have driven out there and seen it. It's also been driven over so much by semi trucks pulling in to the facility across the street that is pushed into the ground and like collapsed on itself. The entire site was draining to that, which was like, for a 100-year event, it's like 15 CFS. Now, there's no way that one inlet can capture all that. It can't. So what was happening is it's going over the road and just going across. It's not capturing. We're capturing it, which is better than what it was before. So I hope you understand that.
Oh yeah. I totally.
I'm
get
not worried about this being an issue at all, but I understand what you're saying about downstream. And I think something that maybe you guys should also consider as a city is there's a lot of times where we talk about detention, and detention's a good thing that we should look for. But sometimes if you detain all this water and then that an hour later that slug comes through, when all that high volume waters come through and you've been holding water back and you're releasing water that should have left, well, you just made the problem worse, right? Because that water should have went out and that volume should be gone downstream. And now you've held water in and you haven't released it fast enough. So there's kind of this, if you're worried about downstream or people, you don't want all those peaks to hit at the same time. That's what you're controlling. So, and that's not going to happen here. So.
Okay. Thanks.
What about lighting?
Do you want me to explain kind of what we're doing?
Yeah.
It's just
is there a
two-
page number that the lighting's on?
It's 2 wall packs that are going to be mounted to the side of the building. They'll have like that limit light from going off to the side that goes straight onto the parking lot.
Even for the parking next to Chase Street? That doesn't have a building next to it? All the parking on your far right?
Yeah, so
Go here.
Yeah.
On the south side.
So did you have a separate sheet on that?
yes, I did.
I didn't see it, but I did probably just.
Okay. I think it's one more.
Is it this one, erosion,
Maybe
no,
one.
Got the ones with
landscape.
landscape.
There it is. That's it.
Lighting, here it is.
That's it, okay.
So the wall packs are actually on the corner of this.
Yeah.
And, we reiterated to NBC that the height limit is 25 feet and it needs cutoff shielding to face down to the edge of the site, which is roughly this line here
Okay.
where the wheel stops are. So as long as it's cutoff shields no taller than 25 feet, you're not directly shining into the eyes of someone here.
Or
It
a
meets-
driver.
Or a driver,
Yeah.
correct.
And there's no specific luminance requirements, right? For the.
Yes, there is.
There is?
It's 1 foot candles. I think we say that right. It's in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my only other thing based on the ordinances that I'm reading is, trash receptacles, and I'm assuming the landscape that's outlined in the site plan complies with, parking lot design shall be provided, not that one.
Yeah, if 1 tree per 12 spaces.
It was, parking lot shall be screened from view along sidewalks and roadways through the combined use of free-forming berms, low masonry walls, and plantings.
You can't do that when you're paving right into the street.
Yeah, so that was a an interpretary thing along Chase, but here they made sure to provide those landscape islands, if you will, on the perimeters of them. But yeah, it's kind of hard to screen when it is direct access, right? So that is unique in the sense that it is in the right of way. Normally, the parking would end here, right, where you have these double wheel stops.
Right.
Then it would just be a line of shrubs here to screen it.
Is the,
So there's no curb on Chase Street?
No, it's just
No.
pull-in parking.
No, it's a asphalt road and just bar ditches. Yeah.
is the church consider this private parking?
I don't think so.
So technically anything in the right of way.
In the right of way
is
should be
open,
public
right? So
parking.
everything that you see along the along the streets
So
are
all
technically.
those spaces on Chase Street should actually be deemed as like public parking then.
Well,
because they're in the right of way.
And speaking with the owner, I mean, the whole thing is he's not opposed to anyone parking on the property. They're not going to be closed gate. I mean, essentially what they're doing in those areas is they're creating public street parking similar to downtown, where
Yeah,
you have it right on the
exactly.
street. So, you can't screen those because then you can't park.
No, I know, I'm just saying that says that's what you have to have, so.
Yeah.
Whatever we do needs to make sure it allows for
So
them not to have.
did that have to go to Board of Adjustments for variance?
No, because in essence, they are creating street parking, right-of-way parking. So that's a little different from
Okay.
private site parking.
Private.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, it's one of those odd rules where, black and white reading, it's difficult. But if you look at the practicality of it, it's a little different.
Then my only other question regarding the ordinance is about at least one paved continuous and direct pedestrian walkway, a minimum of 5 feet wide, clear, no bumper overhang through the parking lot to the building shall be provided.
So I think that's just talking about the ADA route.
Here, basically.
Yes. And that's
There's a
what we're-
5-foot path that connects.
Okay, so it doesn't matter that it doesn't connect to the other set of parking.
So we provided 2 separate ones for
Yeah.
ADA access, this one and this one.
Okay.
And that meets the required number?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't read it to have anything to do with ADA, but just throwing it out there.
Seems like a lot of time and effort was put into this, and thank you,
Well,
Cole.
it looks great.
Too bad our city didn't do that with the parking lot
Yeah.
That we didn't approve?
that we didn't approve, correct?
I make a motion, we, go Go back over here.
Got a motion from Commissioner.
I haven't finished my words.
Sorry, okay.
I make a motion, we approve the
Hold on,
preliminary
I'm tired.
site plan submitted by Masterbuilt Ministries Incorporated for the purpose of developing a parking lot expansion, serving a permitted commercial daycare use and non-conforming place of worship. Non-conforming, okay. In Article 11B1 General Business District located at 304 Fraser Street, Navasota, Grimes County.
I want to make a comment. What does non-conforming
I know,
mean?
that's stuck in me when I read that.
It's the legal term in our ordinance for grandfathered. So,
Oh,
that,
okay.
that place has been a church for years and years and years, and,
Yeah.
the zoning ordinance changed, and those specific uses require like a conditional use permit process, but it's been in operation for a fairly long time, and so
Okay.
that's what it is. It's non-conform, it's grandfathered.
Okay. Okay.
Have a motion from Commissioner Copeland to approve the site plan.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wisner. Any other comments or? All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, NBC, for a wonderful project.
Thank you, guys. It was nice to meet all of you tonight.
Thanks,
Nice to meet
Cole.
you too,
Sure
Cole.
you'll be seeing more of us.
That brings us to agenda item number,
Up here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
we're gonna skip over agenda item number 5 since they didn't meet the guidelines for getting the notes taken care of, and a lot of other issues. So,
And they're not here.
yeah, and they're not here, correct. So that brings us to consideration and possible action on the meeting minutes for February 13th, 2025. Seems like an eternity ago.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes for February 13th, 2025.
We have a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Barcheck,
I'll second
a
it.
second from Commissioner Kukowski. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, motion carries, and that brings us to my favorite agenda item of the night. Let's adjourn.
6:31.
Nice. Nice.
Wasn't there talk about doing a new long-range plan?
Y'all too.
Are they
Good
putting
luck.
into the effort of putting in a new 15-year plan? Or
Yeah, I think so.
Has that started?